Well, hi and welcome. This is Kevin Leipzig, host of Contractor TV. This channel is sponsored by the Contractors Resource Center, which focuses on working with and serving insurance and business needs of California contractors. Today on Contractor TV, we're excited to have Carolyn Cromines. Carolyn is a true jack of all trades. In addition to being the owner and managing partner of Cromines Law Firm, Carolyn is the co-founder of Morel Masonry Supply and the owner of Subcontractor Institute, which is an online education platform for contractors. Carolyn is also the host of the educational construction podcast, Quit Getting Screwed, and she has published 2 Amazon best-selling books, Quit Getting Screwed, Understanding and Negotiating a Subcontract, and Quit Getting Stiffed, a Texas contractor's guide to liens and collections. Carolyn, welcome. Love those. I always love those titles. The quit getting. No one wants to get screwed or stiffed, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And that's what we're here to. All of these conversations are about, so that those things don't happen. Learn from everybody's past mistakes, so you don't.
Yep. And I'm learning all the time. And our focus is really at the Contractor Center, the insurance side, right? Liability, workers' comp, and the construction law goes hand in hand in there because. Maybe I should write it, maybe I'm thinking maybe I should start a book about quit getting screwed with insurance, right? Because I see it all the time, right?
Absolutely.
Understanding the details of what's in a policy, nobody ever reads it.
No.
Right?
And that's why they don't understand that, especially if you're in the construction industry, you really need a specialized policy. You can't go, like I tell my clients, you cannot go to the same guy that you got your car insurance from to get the policy that they're going to need for your
and it happens all the time. And I don't blame people. I mean, you call your insurance guy, right? You call your State Farm or Farmers, and they may have a policy, but it's not going to cover the nuances of construction, right?
Yeah, all the indemnity that you need,
Yeah.
That's a scary word. Everybody's like, indemnity, it sounds really bad. And what I can say is, yes, indemnity is scary and dangerous, but if you have the right insurance, you're covered. You're good.
There you go. Well, we'll talk about insurance on another episode here, but today's focus is really a popular one, and that is incorporations, right? Should I incorporate? How do I incorporate? What are the advantages? What are the costs? So I appreciate you carving out some time here. I do want to mention before we jump into this, you and I connected on the California Contractor group on Facebook, which is a great resource. Not only for California contractors, although it's designed for California contractors, we have subcontractors, artisan contractors from all over the country joining this group. And it's really become a great forum to share best practices, to share tips on how to start the business, how to protect the business. So I encourage you, if you're watching this, that's how Carolyn and I got connected. It's a great forum, California Contractors on Facebook. So little mini commercial there for that.
Yep. No, and I'm always hopping in there too, answering questions from the legal perspective. It's really great. Like-minded people can think and pass ideas. What happened here, and just better the industry.
It's really blown up. I think we have over 6,000 people as of this date in that group. I originally created California Contractors really for my clients to network together and to hopefully pass leads to them, but it's really grown and blown up. So let's jump into Incorporation 101. So maybe we could start with, why should a contractor even consider incorporating? And from my standpoint, working with new contractors, most, if not all, when I start working with them with their bonds or liability, I see sole proprietor. That seems like the default standard, to become licensed as a sole proprietor. So educate us a little bit about why should somebody incorporate? What are the advantages?
Sure. I think anybody who goes into business should incorporate, but especially in the construction industry, because you want to make a barrier between like your personal assets, your home, the things you own at home with your family, your household bank accounts, your income and all of that, and your business, right? And your business needs to operate on its own, incur its own debts, be liable for its own responsibilities, and sign the contracts and all of that. When you don't, so basically incorporation puts up that barrier. When you're a company, basically think of a company as its very own person, and it is not your individual self, it's your corporate self. And so a corporation signs contracts, gets bank accounts, enters debts. And then if something goes wrong and something happens and the company has to default, those collection efforts will be against the company itself if you're incorporated, not your personal assets. So,
Mm,
you know, I know like in California, if you have a judgment against you personally, they can garnish your wages. Like before you get your paycheck, you're somebody who has a judgment against you is taking
right,
out what their percentage of what they're owed, kind of like
right,
child support or whatever. And so you don't want that to happen. You don't want to be personally liable for the debts of your company. So
right.
if you have, if you're incorporated and something goes wrong, like a big project, you accidentally sign a contract, you can't afford to do it, and it goes upside down. Don't get me wrong, it's going to be painful to put the business in bankruptcy probably, but it will protect your personal assets, like your paycheck and your house will not be up for grabs to satisfy the debts of the company.
Yeah, great points. And I'm thinking, you know, I like how you mentioned the, you know, how your paycheck can actually get garnered, right? The government, you know, depending on a lawsuit, can attach their little fingers on that income, right? And that kind of ties into sometimes speaking with newly licensed contractors. I think, you know, I don't have any assets to protect. It's just me. I don't even own a home. And then I remind them, well, you know, if a lawsuit comes your way, even though you don't have assets, they can find a way to tap into your future earning potential, right? That is correct, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and
Yeah,
here's the thing is, okay, so they get the judgment. If you don't have any assets right now, that's cool, but that judgment's going to be alive for at least 10 years. And that could attach to, you know, if you do get a job, they can find that out and they'll start
right.
garnishing your wages. Or if you do get a house, you know, you never know what's going to happen in the next 10 years. You might not
True.
always, and that's the whole point of going into business, right? Is you want to make money and be profitable and be
Yeah,
successful. You don't want to risk all that by being
yep,
personally, you know what I'm saying?
yep,
And
yep.
it helps protect you and your family, and you know that is your safety net. And don't be wrong, you're always trying to do a good job, and you don't purposely have these things happen, but it is a
Yeah,
safety net if it does.
yeah. Can you walk us through a little bit on, you know, there's incorporation, there's the S corp, the C corp, LLC. Is there one that's more common for contractors? I know I do see quite a few LLCs, and then, you know, and there's a certain bond that's required for LLC in California. Um, Share with us a little bit about, you know, the different types of incorporation structures, maybe pros and cons between each.
Well, really, from the legal perspective, an LLC and an Inc. and S corp are all the same. You're all protected. What really matters on that side is the tax perspective, because like an S corp or C corp, whether or not it comes back in your personal taxes, and that's all really a better question for a CPA. For me,
Okay,
it's just I want you to have the entity so that you're legally protected and your assets are protected. And you
okay,
know, the process of becoming incorporated is not that horribly hard. You have to, and I would probably hire it out. We do it. There's other companies that do it for a flat rate, filing the documents that are required with the Secretary of State in the state that you're in, and then you
mm-hmm.
become a company, and then it becomes its own entity. And really, at that point, you have to treat it as its own entity too. It's got to have its own bank account. It's got to have its own, and it's got to have its own bank account that you're not using like for personal funds
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. So
Okay, so the differences between the corporations, the C corp, S corp, LLC, they have their own unique tax implications, but the common thread of incorporating is it's that layer of protection. Did I
absolutely,
hear you correctly? Okay.
yes.
What is a typical time frame and maybe some cost estimates on setting up a corporation? How long does it take, and what type of investment would a contractor be looking at to set up a
You
corporation?
Yeah, usually if it's just a one person corporation, like you're the owner, you're the operator, it take a week maybe. And you know, if you do it directly, it's a couple $100. If you're going through an attorney, I would imagine it anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's the thing is if you're just one person, if you want to go into business with somebody else, it's going to be a little more elevated because really at that point in time when you're starting the business, there needs to be an agreement of how the operation of the two parties are going to operate, who's in charge of what happens if one party wants to get out, and that all needs to be done in an operating agreement, which can be part of the incorporation documents, but before as the business is started. Because if
Okay.
you don't, there's a set of default rules that apply that you're probably not going to like the outcome of. as
Okay.
opposed to planning ahead for something like that.
Sure, sure. So the operating agreement comes into play when you're not a sole proprietor moving into a corporation, but if you have more than one owner of the business, you need that operating agreement.
Absolutely.
And
That's
that's
going to
part of
say
the
here.
process.
Yes, here are the ground rules. So that'll take a little bit longer, 3 or 4 weeks, just
Sure.
because there's going to be an interview process. What are you looking for? Who wants to be in charge? And then we've got to draft that to be, what do you want your buyout provision to be? And I know that, people are so in the honeymoon stage when they're starting a new business, they don't want to think about all the stuff. But that
Nothing
is
will
the
go
time to
wrong.
think about all the stuff. I promise you, you
Of
don't want to
course.
be on the back end of,
Yep.
it's really hard in any partnership, like marriage and all of that. But this one, we can put the ground rules. We know what's going to happen in the end. So I highly recommend that if you want to go to business, I think that is great. Just let's have the ground rules set out.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Like we've spoken of before on previous episodes we've done on Contractor TV. We've got one on the importance of setting up a contract, right? That agreement. What's the understanding between the two parties and how important that is.
Absolutely.
So when you set up the corporation, is there, I imagine, any kind of ongoing maintenance that you need to keep that corporation, other than the tax filings? Any kind of
You have to do
ongoing?
the tax filing, and then the state will require like an updated yearly report. And like, depending on the type of business that you are, you may have franchise taxes, which are at the state level. So all of those things need to be done on a yearly basis. And if you don't, what'll happen is that you'll forfeit your corporate charter, your corporate status. And so like anything you go out and do during that time you're forfeited, then you can become personally liable. So we need to make sure and normally if you have a CPA that you're working with, they put that in as part of their process when they do your taxes to make sure all the proper paperwork gets filed with the, with the IRS and with the state that you're with to keep you in good standing.
Right. Okay. So what I'm hearing, kind of the takeaway here is, incorporating, there's multiple levels of incorporation. The common thread with incorporation is it protects that liability, or protects those assets from your personal assets, right? And can certainly have some tax advantages, and that's more for the bookkeeper, the CPA, to understand the tax implications, right? Yep. Cost ranges can be anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500, different variables on there. If there's more than one partner or more than one business owner on the license, then you have the operating agreement to consider. That's a separate document, understanding, I guess, who does what, right, with the corporation. Yep,
absolutely. And just having that spelled out on the front end so that, like you said, again, clearer expectations, the less likely we end up in disputes.
Sure. Okay. Anything else I know we covered a lot, but anything else we're missing? Or
No, I'd just like to stress again too, is that you need to run it as its own business, as its own entity. Don't use your personal assets. Don't take personal expenses out of it, because if you start using it as your own personal piggy bank, you could forfeit that protection. So it really needs to be run as its own independent entity.
Funds separate, no commingling, much like an insurance agency, right? We have to have a trust account, right, where all the insurance premium comes in and out. I don't mess with Kevin's account into the business account, right? Keep it separate.
Absolutely, same kind of thing. Same kind of thing. Otherwise, you lose all the protection.
Yeah. Don't want that. It's all about the protection. Well, Carolyn,
absolutely.
Thank you so much. How do folks get a hold of the Cromings Law Firm? We'll certainly have our information here when we post this. We'll have your contact info, but why don't you go ahead and share that with us as well?
Yes, just the cromingslawfirm.com, or the number is 713-715-7334. We're based out of Texas, but we're licensed to practice in California and very familiar with California construction law. So
perfect. Carolyn, always great to chat with you. Thanks for sharing the wisdom, and enjoy the rest of the week.
You too. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.